Okay, ladies and gentlemen, yes, please stay in your seats because we've got a great final session. This is, it is the 4th of July, and to use a US sporting metaphor, this is when we bring in the closers, you know, the ones who are going to close this out and bring it home. So we've got a great panel now to do just that. So I'd like to introduce now Paschal Donohoe, who is the president of the Eurogroup and the Minister for Public Expenditure, National Development, Plan Delivery and Reform in Ireland. Thank you very much for being with us today, and please come and join me on the stage. Welcome. Next, of course, we have the Minister of National Economy and Finance of Greece, Kostis Hatzidakis. Please join me on the stage, Minister, and welcome. Great to have you at our event, as always. And we also have a representative, very important representative from the banking sector, Pavlos Mylonas, Chief Executive Officer of the National Bank of Greece. Welcome, Pavlos. So what we're discussing here is we're going to talk about Europe, and we're going to talk about Greece in the same conversation. And I guess we're going to focus on the state of public finances in Greece and Europe, but also most importantly on growth and what the growth outlook is for the region. So my introductory question for both of you is, in light of recent political developments, how do you see growth in Europe in the next few years, and what should the priorities be? Now, you may want to make some opening remarks to kick off the discussion.
Okay. Firstly, thank you very much for the introduction. It's great to have the opportunity to be here in Athens and to have the opportunity to talk about this really, really important topics. I would just open up by saying that growth needs to be the key priority from an economic perspective for the European Union in the time ahead. We have been extremely successful in our efforts to reduce inflation, even though the cost of living continues to be a challenge for households and businesses in Greece and in Ireland and across Europe. And there is a very big difference between inflation coming down and prices coming down. That being said, we have been successful in delivering a significant reduction in inflation over the last 2 years. Where we now stand is that even though we have avoided a recession as we reduced inflation, we now have a medium-term growth outlook for the European economy that is significantly below other trading partners and other currency zones across the world. And we need to refocus on how we can get our economy to grow. In terms of how we do that, I firstly want to underline the exceptional performance of the Greek economy over the last number of years, to say that since I became president of the Eurogroup and since I first visited Greece in 2020, the turnaround in the Greek economy, its exit from enhanced surveillance, its ability to bring down borrowing and return to growth that is now above the European average, is one of the standout and signature achievements of the euro area and Europe. I want to in particular acknowledge the really important contribution that Kostis makes in all of this, your finance minister, who not only represents the Greek economy with great insight and expertise in the Eurogroup, is also a very valued contributor to all of the big debates that we're having in the Eurogroup now. And in those debates that are focused on growth probably have three elements to them. The first one is, what are the right levels of borrowing? What is the right kind of budget policy we should have in the European Union in the years ahead? And in particular, how can we get the balance right between reducing borrowing after the pandemic and maintaining investment in a European, a Greek and an Irish future? And that is why Next Generation EU is so important. And that is why it's so important that countries such as Greece, who were so successful in making the case for Next Generation EU, continue in their efforts to show that that economic decision has been a big success. And I want to recognise, of course, my former colleague, Kostis Hatzidakis, that I know is playing a valuable role in the implementation of Next Generation EU within the Greek economy. Secondly, I'd have to highlight the importance of capital markets. The underdevelopment of capital markets within the European Union is a really significant area of competitive disadvantage, and we need to look at how we can improve our capital markets in Europe and how we can use our savings in Europe to contribute to economic growth in Europe. And then finally, it's the whole area of competitiveness. And there is a big discussion underway at the moment within the European Union about the Letta report, about the likely recommendations that Mario Draghi will bring, that will again focus in on what are the decisions that we need to make to rebuild our competitiveness within Europe after years of dealing with the pandemic and while we are confronting a war. So I'd have to in particular highlight those three areas: capital markets, budget policy, a renewed focus on competitiveness to address Europe potentially underperforming in the medium term. But again, I have to recognise the exceptionally important work that the Finance Minister of Greece has done in ensuring now that Greek economic performance is now ahead of Europe, and in particular running a primary budget surplus and managing a high level of debt so successfully are really important political developments within Europe.
That's great. Thank you very much for kicking us off, and I'm going to hand over to the Minister now to make your opening remarks.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me here. I would like to welcome Paschal Donohoe to Athens. Paschal is a friend of mine, of Christos Taikouras, and above all, a friend of Greece. We have an excellent cooperation in the framework of Eurogroup, and will continue to do so. Thank you, Paschal, for your kind words as well. Now, allow me to switch into Greek for my introductory remarks, and then I'll switch into English as far as to the Q&A questions, Q&A section. Κυρίες και κύριοι, χωρίς καμιά αμφιβολία, τα τελευταία 5 χρόνια η Ελλάδα, χωρίς να γίνει παράδεισος, έκανε σημαντικά βήματα μπροστά. Μπορώ να αναφερθώ στις εξαγωγές, στις επενδύσεις, σε επιμέρους μεγέθη. Διαλέγω ένα. Πάνω από 400.000 συμπολίτες μας που δεν είχαν δουλειά, τώρα έχουν δουλειά. Όπως και να το λογαριάσουμε, αυτό είναι σημαντικό. Βεβαίως υπήρξε το πρόβλημα του πληθωρισμού σε εμάς και σε όλη την Ευρώπη, αλλά ακόμα και αυτό το πρόβλημα οι συγκεκριμένοι άνθρωποι θα το βίωναν πολύ χειρότερα αν δεν είχαν δουλειά, όπως συνέβαινε μέχρι το 2019. Αυτό δεν ήταν τυχαίο, βασίστηκε σε μια οικονομική πολιτική που συνδύασε την δημοσιονομική σοβαρότητα με μια φιλική προς την επιχειρηματικότητα στάση. Εφαρμόστηκε αυτή η πολιτική με συνέπεια 5 χρόνια τώρα και νομίζω ότι έχει αποδώσει πάρα πολύ σημαντικά. Ως αποτέλεσμα, η Ελλάδα αποκλήθηκε θετική έκπληξη της Ευρώπης και ο Economist απαίνει με τον τίτλο της οικονομίας της χρονιάς το 2023 στην Ελλάδα και το χρυσό μετάλλιο για τη βελτίωση του επιχειρηματικού περιβάλλοντος. Αυτό είναι μια πρώτη παρατήρηση. Τώρα, μέσα σε αυτό το πλαίσιο, εμείς εδώ στην Ελλάδα και συνολικά η Ευρωπαϊκή Ένωση πρέπει να υποτιμούμε τις διεθνείς προκλήσεις και αναταράξεις? Το αντίθετο. Προφανώς όχι. Έχουμε μια σειρά από θέματα τα οποία θα έπρεπε να τα λογαριάζουμε πάρα πολύ σοβαρά. Κλιματική αλλαγή, δημογραφικό, μετανάστευση, επιδεινούμενη ανταγωνιστικότητα, γεωπολιτικές εντάσεις. Ενώ παράλληλα εμφανίζονται και νέες αβεβαιότητες. Ενώ μέχρι τώρα μιλούσαμε για τις αμερικανικές εκλογές τον Νοέμβριο, τώρα σε 3-4 μέρες θα έχουμε τις γαλλικές εκλογές και τα αποτελέσματά τους να μας απασχολήσουν. Ποια είναι τα μηνύματα από αυτή την ιστορία? 2. Για την Ευρώπη, πρώτα απ' όλα, ότι πρέπει να δει χωρίς καθυστέρηση τα του οίκου της. Πρωτίστως πρέπει να δει τα ζητήματα που σχετίζονται με τη στρατηγική της αυτονομία και την ανταγωνιστικότητά της. Πώς θα στηρίξει επίσης την ψηφιακή και πράσινη μετάβαση, πώς θα διαχειριστεί τα μεταναστευτικά ρεύματα και το δημογραφικό και πώς θα κάνει τους πολίτες να αισθάνονται ότι κάποιος νοιάζεται και για την καθημερινότητά τους και για το μέλλον τους. Να μην μείνουμε στις θεωρίες, να περάσουμε από τη θεωρία στην πράξη. Για την Ελλάδα είναι πως ανεξάρτητα από το τι θα κάνει η Ευρώπη, εμείς έχουμε μια βασική δουλειά. Να αυξήσουμε την ανθεκτικότητά μας απέναντι στις προκλήσεις και τις αβεβαιότητες. Με ποιο στόχο? Με το στόχο να κλείσουμε οριστικά τις πληγές της περασμένης δεκαετίας και να συγκλίνουμε με το μέσο όρο της Ευρωπαϊκής Ένωσης. Διότι την περασμένη δεκαετία η ελληνική οικονομία υπέστη μια μεγάλη μαχαιριά και τώρα πρέπει να κάνει τα βήματα που έχουμε μπροστά μας με τη μεγαλύτερη ταχύτητα για να συγκλίνουμε, έχοντας τις βάσεις που χτίστηκαν την περασμένη δεκαετία και την πρόοδο που είχαμε την περασμένη δεκαετία. Τι κάνουμε λοιπόν με βάση αυτό το σκεπτικό? 3 πράγματα και τελειώνω με αυτήν την εισαγωγική τοποθέτηση. Το πρώτο είναι συνέχιση των φιλοαναπτυξιακών μεταρρυθμίσεων. Περαιτέρω βελτίωση του επιχειρηματικού περιβάλλοντος. Επιτάχυνση της απονομής της δικαιοσύνης, απλοποίηση διαδικασιών, βελτίωση ρυθμιστικού πλαισίου, εξυγχρονισμός και περαιτέρω ψηφιοποίηση του δημοσίου, αναβάθμιση της εκπαίδευσης, υπενθυμίζω τον καινούριο νόμο για τα παραρτήματα των Ευρωπαϊκών Πανεπιστημίων, ακόμα μεγαλύτερη επιτάχυνση της πράσινης και ψηφιακής μετάβασης. Είμαστε αποφασισμένοι να προχωρήσουμε και να κάνουμε πράξη όλα αυτά, δεν είναι λόγια, είναι σχέδιο. Το δεύτερο, όσον αφορά, μάλλον μέσα σε αυτό το πλαίσιο, όσον αφορά το δικό μας Υπουργείο, περαιτέρω μείωση της φοροδιαφυγής και συνδυασμός αυτών των βημάτων με περαιτέρω μείωση των φόρων, το ένα μπορεί κάλλιστα να συνδυαστεί με το άλλο και είναι και προϋπόθεση. Ενδυνάμωση του χρηματοπιστωτικού συστήματος για τη χρηματοδότηση της οικονομίας, διαφοροποίηση και εξυγχρονισμός του παραγωγικού μοντέλου με παροχή κινήτρων, άρση εμποδίων, μείωση στρεβλώσεων, βέλτιστη αξιοποίηση των πόρων που έρχονται από Βρυξέλλες, ΕΣΠΑ και Ταμείο Ανάκαμψης και εφαρμογή ενός ολοκληρωμένου σχεδίου για την αξιοποίηση της δημόσιας περιουσίας. Άρα, σας είπα τόσο για την κυβέρνηση όσο και για το Υπουργείο Οικονομικών τις βασικές κινήσεις για τη βελτίωση, περαιτέρω βελτίωση του επιχειρηματικού περιβάλλοντος. Το δεύτερο, αυτό αφορά μόνο το Υπουργείο Οικονομικών, είναι η συνετή δημοσιονομική πολιτική που είναι θεμέλιο για τη γενικότερη προσπάθεια για την οικονομία και αυτό, κυρίες και κύριοι, θα αποτυπώνεται και στο Fiscal Structural Plan, το οποίο θα κατατεθεί το φθινόπωρο στις Βρυξέλλες. Θα αποτυπώνεται η προσήλωση της κυβέρνησης στη δημοσιονομική σοβαρότητα. Και το τρίτο είναι η άσκηση φυσικά μιας αποτελεσματικής και δίκαιης κοινωνικής πολιτικής. Τι θέλω να πω? Θέλω να υπενθυμίσω και από εδώ, ότι από πέρσι το καλοκαίρι αμέσως θέσαμε σε εφαρμογή το 50% του οικονομικού μας προγράμματος, τουλάχιστον όσον αφορά το δημοσιονομικό επίπεδο, αύξηση των μισθών των δημοσίων υπαλλήλων, παραδείγματος χάρη, μετά από 14 χρόνια. Στον προϋπολογισμό του 2025 θα περιλαμβάνονται μια σειρά από επιπλέον παρεμβάσεις, παραδείγματος χάρη περαιτέρω μείωση των ασφαλιστικών εισφορών και κατάργηση του τέλους επιτιδεύματος για τους ελεύθερους επαγγελματίες. Μέχρι το τέλος του έτους έχουμε παραπάνω βήματα για τη στεγαστική πολιτική της κυβέρνησης και θα έχουμε και τον πρώτο διαγωνισμό για τη λεγόμενη κοινωνική αντιπαροχή μέσω του ΤΑΙΠΕΔ, μαζί με διαπραγματεύσεις που συνεχίζονται με την Ευρωπαϊκή Επιτροπή για τη συνέχιση με μια άλλη φόρμα, με μια άλλη μορφή του προγράμματος «Σπίτι μου» μέσω του Ταμείου Ανάκαμψης. Θα έχουμε μια παρέμβαση στην πολιτική επιδομάτων σε συνεργασία με το Υπουργείο Οικογένειας και Κοινωνικής Συνοχής, χωρίς να αλλάξουμε τον προϋπολογισμό, αλλά με στόχο μια δικαιότερη κατανομή των επιδομάτων, για να αποφύγουμε περιπτώσεις κατάχρησης και να πάνε τα επιδόματα σε αυτούς που πράγματι τα χρειάζονται. Και βεβαίως και κάποιες δράσεις για το δημογραφικό, που στην Ελλάδα είναι οξύτατο. Η κυβέρνηση έχει λάβει ήδη και στην πρώτη τετραετία μια σειρά από πρωτοβουλίες για αυτό το θέμα, με πιο εμβληματική το επίδομα γέννησης, αλλά είμαστε αποφασισμένοι στο μέτρο του δυνατού, στο μέτρο που μπορεί να το στηρίξει ο προϋπολογισμός και η οικονομία, να προχωρήσουμε προς αυτή την κατεύθυνση, διότι είναι ένα μείζον εθνικό πρόβλημα. Αυτές είναι οι πρώτες εισαγωγικές σκέψεις που είχα να κάνω και σας ευχαριστώ και για την ανοχή σας.
Well, thanks very much, Minister, for that. Let me turn to you now, Pavlos, and tell us how you see the role of the banking sector going forward in supporting growth in Greece.
Okay. First of all, I want to thank the Economist for once again organizing a landmark conference, bringing great speakers and stimulating important discussion on topics not just for Greece but for the world. So, congratulations. Now, turning to the question, the Greek economy picking up speed and what can banks do? Just a few remarks first on the Greek economy. Greece has experienced a fourth year of economic overperformance relative to the euro area. More importantly, the recovery is maturing, becoming more sustainable, and growth is more broad-based. There exist several important growth catalysts which should support robust growth in the years to come. Let me just mention a few. Backloaded RRF-related capex, a strengthened labor market, as mentioned by the Minister, steadily improving fiscal position, recovery in the euro area with monetary policy beginning to normalize, a competitive economy capable to attract foreign investment and to gain export market share. And finally, an underleveraged economy with a healthy banking sector which has the capacity and the desire to finance investment. Investment, it's key. It continues to accelerate despite the restrictive monetary policy environment. FDI remains strong, and in 24 will be at a record high, close to 3.5% of GDP. R&D spending is a great part of investment, which increases the quality of investment. And we've closed the gap with the EU on R&D by 50% in the past few years. All in all, the consensus has confidence in the short-term growth prospects of Greece, and rightly so. However, real convergence to EU, which is our goal, still needs significant effort. Increasing long-term growth potential while achieving a balanced and inclusive path of economic development is far more challenging task, requiring significant structural change, as the Minister has already mentioned. Let me say a few words on the role of banks in this effort as I see it. Banks historically play a key role in linking macroeconomic progress with microeconomic decisions, optimizing capital allocation. Currently, Greek banks are in the best shape ever, I dare say, and are well prepared to redefine their role in the ongoing economic transition of the country. Let me be specific. First, Greek banks are outperforming by far on conventional metrics. They have strong capital and liquidity positions, buoyant return on equity, and non-performing assets close to EU peers. They are performing their classic financial intermediary role successfully. Specifically, net credit flows have been equivalent to 10% of GDP during the past 4 years, outperforming the euro area average by a wide margin. In fact, according to the ECB's SAFE survey on the access to finance of enterprises, the financing gap of businesses is at its lowest point since the beginning of the Greek crisis, while the ECB Bank Lending Survey points to pre-crisis highs in loan approvals ratios for households. Moreover, Greek banks have already successfully allocated nearly 1/3 of RRF loans, that's 18 billion, approved for Greece. Finally, the financing of many complex projects has surged, leading to the upgrade of critical infrastructure, as well as a plethora of large energy projects, helping Greece become a regional energy hub. But the new model that Greek banks are aiming at is more ambitious. Greek banks aspire to play a bigger role in shaping a more competitive, but also knowledge-based and inclusive growth paradigm. Their own transformation, achieved during the decades following the economic crisis, provide a roadmap for how to manage change for their clients and for the economy as a whole. Again, let me be more specific. Banks have been at the forefront of prompting the use of cashless payments, leading them to increase rapidly in a very short period of time, up by a factor of 9, with such payments now exceeding the European average. Importantly, the use of cashless payments has played a significant role in reducing shadow economic activity and tax evasion. Second, banks have made unprecedented IT investments amounting to several hundreds of millions of euros per year to modernize their infrastructure, to digitalize banking services, thus leading to the digitalization of many of their clients and the economy. We have upgraded our human capital in order to meet rapidly evolving corporate customer needs. In fact, it pains me to say that we are becoming a source of hires for much of the other sectors of the economy. We have encouraged SMEs to seek formality and undertake healthy expansion plans. We have promoted financial literacy to help individuals make informed investment decisions, overcoming the risk aversion due to the past experiences from macro instability, thus increasing savings as well as encouraging more efficient wealth allocation. Finally, we're playing a leading role in ESG adoption as an accelerator of energy transition, prompting our clients to adopt emission-reducing projects. To conclude, the economy is at an important turning point, shifting from recovery to structural advancement. Envisaged government reforms will play an important role going forward, but the private sector must pick up its game and restructure the way it operates, and I believe the Greek banks are well advanced on their journey and will be change leaders in the years to come.
Thank you very much indeed. Well, we've got about 20 minutes now for discussion, and there's a lot to talk about. So, Paschal, you set out as you see it, the three important issues here. So I wanted to start with the last one that you spoke about, competitiveness. We had the pleasure of having Enrico Letta here on Tuesday evening in discussion with Prime Minister Mitsotakis. That's a hot topic. It's been a hot topic at this event. And as you say, it's a hot topic at the moment in terms of discussions in Europe. So, I wanted to ask you really to say what you take from that report. It's a big report. There's a lot in there, a lot of new ideas. What would you pull out as the most important ones in terms of addressing this competitiveness gap between Europe and, say, the US, but also Asia, and also in terms of addressing this gap between kind of political mainstream, if we want to call it that, and the citizens who are voicing their discontent. What can you take from that from the report to address those two big issues?
Great. So in many ways, the most important idea in Mr. Less's report might not be the most original, because his report reminds us of the unfulfilled potential of the single market of the European Union and how it can be deepened further, particularly from a digital perspective and from the perspective of capital markets. And he relates the potential underperformance of the European Union in the years ahead to our continued inability to realize that potential. And while it might be a familiar argument, I believe the Lesser report has given us additional weight and even punch at an important time. For me then, about how you relate that to the people that myself and Kostis represent, it is actually in the opening comments that were made by your finance minister, by Kostis, when he opened up by emphasizing the incredibly impressive performance of the Greek economy with regard to employment. And I believe relating those big macro ideas back to the tangible, practical experience of, do you have a job, and does that job pay you enough to help you have a good standard of living? And the ability of politicians of the centre, like myself and Kostis, to make that link, to me, is critical in the future health of the European political centre.
Yeah, and can you relate that, just I'd like to hear, as from an Irish background myself, from what's happening in your own country, in your own economy?
We can indeed. I mean, we've had European Parliament elections and the local elections a couple of weeks ago, in which the political centre grew.
Yep.
If you look at European Parliament level, the number of MEPs that are in the Christian Democrats, Social Democrats, and Renew Party have now grown. And the parties of the centre in the local elections did well. Now, as you'll know, with an Irish background, we have many difficulties and many things we need to do a lot better on in Ireland. But as Kostis did at the start of his contribution, relating back these ideas to the bread and butter reality of, do you have a job? Is it a good job? Does it help you pay your rent? Can you pay your mortgage due to that job? I think is the golden thread that politicians like myself need to be able to better communicate.
Okay, great, thank you. And I'm going to come back to the capital markets and investment issue, but I'm going to turn back to you, Kostis, now. You outlined the priorities for the second administration of the government, and just wanted to ask you to say a bit more about your own ministry and the policies that you're going to be, and main initiatives that you're going to be pursuing in the next 12 months in order to pursue that, and obviously to reflect on anything that Paschal had said as well.
Thank you. I'll try to be very concrete. First of all, we'll try to step up the implementation of the tax reform we adopted with 11 different initiatives last December. We believe that by implementing this reform, we will have the necessary fiscal room at the end of the day to further reduce taxes in Greece. Secondly, we will try, Mr. Mylonas, to complete the disinvestment of the state from Greek banks that has to do with the Attica Bank and the creation of the so-called fifth pillar in our banking sector, but also to deal with the pending issues regarding the stake of the state in NBG, National Bank of Greece. Thirdly, we are going to pursue our ambitious legislative agenda. In particular, there are 4 bills which are currently being drafted. The first aims to improve the functioning of capital markets in Greece by strengthening the supervisory authority and by making the Athens Stock Exchange more attractive. It is important for our enterprises, especially for the SMEs and their financing needs. Don't underestimate that. The second aims to simplify the legal framework for mergers and acquisitions by adopting the necessary tax and financing incentives. We have to incentivize our small companies to scale up, let's say, on a voluntary basis, of course, but we must not neglect this problem. The third aims to reform the rules pertaining to public investments by modernizing the public investment framework and by making it more transparent. And the fourth aims to fundamentally transform the Hellenic Corporation of Assets and Participations, the HCAP. It is an important reform that will change drastically the image of HCAP. Today, it is perceived by many Greeks as the fund of our creditors. It will become a fund contributing to growth in Greece. That's why we create a new sovereign fund in Greece, following the example of many other countries, including Ireland. And of course, we are going to change the model the subsidiary companies of this fund are operating, following the successful reforms we adopted in the main electricity company in Greece, PPC. This is the essence of our interventions in the next 12 months, as far as the Ministry of Economy and Finance is concerned.
And that new fund, Sovereign Wealth Fund or Investment Fund, that will be launched in autumn, is it?
Our aim is to vote this new bill, the draft law, by the end of July, and then we'll have the necessary preparations, and I think that we'll be in a position to launch this fund the 1st of January 2025.
Okay, thank you. So turning to you, Pavlos, so the Minister's already kind of introduced the question really about plans for disposing of the remaining stake in the National Bank of Greece. I think 18.4%, is that what's left?
Correct.
So what can we expect? Is it?
We'll see the exact model,
Uh-huh.
the right timing, and so on.
Okay.
I refer to the general
Idea.
idea within 2024, of course.
Yes, yes. So, well, I suppose I was going to ask, okay, maybe I can't ask more than that, but whether we're looking for a strategic investor or there's not really any particular model that we're looking at.
The investor is the state.
Yes.
They decide what they want to do with their share. We are executors, so.
Okay, but yeah, obviously we're not going to confine you to talking about that. But in previous sessions, I don't know if you were here, Pavlos, there was quite a lot of talk about things that can be done in the banking sector to strengthen it further, improve resilience and exposure to shock. So it'd be good to hear a bit more from you about what would you see as the most important things?
I think most of it has been done. If there's one sector that has gone from horrible shape to very good shape in the past few years, it's the banking sector. Clearly with the help of the state, clearly with the help of own resources in terms of selling subsidiaries and using pre-provision profit for the past 10 years to clean up the NPEs. But currently, The capital ratios are, if not the highest, among the highest in Europe. Liquidity is, we have loads of liquidity. So the classic two items of a balance sheet that a bank needs to have are there. We are becoming more efficient in terms of we have the resources now to invest in our IT. We're becoming more modern banks in the way we operate. 98% of transactions are now done outside branches, and we keep trying to get our customers to become more digitalized, as I said in my introductory remarks. So I think I don't see anything on the horizon that can really change the stability and the security of the Greek banks for the moment.
Well, just to ask one question, and it was something that I was thinking about and it came up earlier, which is that the net interest margin of Greek banks is one of the highest in Europe. You know, do you think that's creating some kind of investment gap or limitation?
We have sort of a split personality, if you want. On the asset side of the balance sheet, competition is fierce. Spreads have come down. We are now, despite the rating of Greece being significantly below the European average, though catching up, our spreads on loan spreads on corporates and mortgages are less than, I would say, 35, 50 basis points different. The excess liquidity on the other side of the balance sheet does not tend to lead to strong competition. People comment on the low cost of funding, but if you look like for like, apples with apples, time deposits with time deposits, and savings deposits with savings deposits, we're not that far from the European average. Greeks have a tendency to keep their funds in low interest-bearing current accounts, despite the fact that there are mutual funds that bear good yields and time deposits that bear good yields as well. So it's a mix effect rather than a difference per product effect. But clearly, yes, we have a solid NII.
Okay, I know, Pascal, you've got a meeting in a few minutes. I don't know if you know that, but you have. And
I didn't.
Okay.
I knew I had a meeting later on.
Okay, I'll let you know. That's to let you know. So I'm just going to take advantage of having you here to say a little bit more about capital markets, because obviously this is some, you know, banking union as well. This is something that's been under discussion for such a long time. It seems to be, you know, kind of becoming more urgent all the time. So, you know, can this actually happen, and how can it happen?
Yes, it can. And firstly, we have made progress, but we have not made anywhere near as much progress as investors want and as we should have. The reason why we will make further progress in the time ahead is the simple reality that finance ministers have to borrow less but have to fund more. So Kostis, every other finance minister in the European Union, has to reduce borrowing, and at the same time our economies expect us to be able to become more digital. Our societies and our climate requires us to become greener, and many economies need to spend more in defence. And the best hope we have of reconciling those two forces that are going in opposite directions is how we make better use of capital markets in the European Union. Mm-hmm. So for reasons of necessity, in the next number of years, we will take a big step forward.
Okay, great. Minister, did you want to add anything on that?
I absolutely
Yes.
agree.
Yeah.
Instead of dragging our feet, we have to proceed with all the necessary decisions. We have the capital, the necessary capital in Europe, provided that we'll use it. Now, the capital works to the benefit of other countries. You imagine what I mean. So we have to adopt the necessary initiatives as soon as possible. Greece has not the size, of course, of Germany, France, or even the Netherlands. But we're determined to have an active role as regards this issue because it is a key problem for Europe. The Letta report takes seriously into account this issue. I'm sure the Draghi report will focus on that. There is a majority of member states supporting the need for having a real capital markets union in Europe. Those having reservations or lagging behind must understand that we have to act and act rapidly.
Thanks. Pavlos, did you want to add anything on this matter?
I think that it's a minister's matter, so I'll leave it at that.
Okay, we've...
I don't disagree, but...
We're actually then going to bring this to a close because we have lunch. We actually haven't had lunch, and we want all of you to join us at that lunch. So please join me in thanking our three final closers, speakers. And as chairman, I would just like to say a few thank yous. I would like to thank all our speakers over the past 3 days. I'd like to thank very much all our sponsors, without whom this event would not be possible and would not be so successful as it is and has been all these years. So thank all of you. Thank you to our audience, to all of you who've attended the event over the past few days. It's been great having you here with us in Athens. I hope that you've enjoyed the discussions and enjoyed all the informal networking outside of the room as well. Thank you to the translators, to the photographers, to my fellow moderators, Daniel and Alistair. And finally, I think everybody should give a big round of applause to Nectaria and her brilliant team, who work incredibly hard, for many months to put this together, and who spend 3 days getting about 3 hours sleep, I think, every night. So thank you, Nectaria. Thank you to all the team. It's been great being here once again in Athens, and we'll be back next year. So let's go to lunch.